What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Tune in to Awakened Wellness with Mylène Riobe, MD, and join the conversation about how to heal our broken system to reverse our current health crisis. The entire world is looking for answers, and the truth is hidden in plain sight. Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness. Every Tuesday at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. with live shows on the first and third mornings when you can call in and ask the questions that matter most to you.
Happy New Year, everyone. I'm Dr. Mylène Riobe, and thanks for joining me today, January 1st, 2019, on Awakened Wellness with Mylène Riobe, MD. We'll be going on an eye-opening, mind-expanding adventure into wellness and disease prevention. January 1st is a very special day for me for several reasons. It's my daughter Alex's birthday. She turned 14 today. And it's also Haitian Independence Day. And our family is from Haiti, so today marks a special day for us. And we also celebrate Little Brother Day on January 1st. We have a tradition that we celebrate the sibling on the alternate sibling's birthday. So we have a lot going on today, and I wish you all a safe, wonderful, happy, and healthy 2019. And thank you for joining me today on this special day. So we're live today, so as always, I welcome your comments and questions. So please be sure to call in at area code 833-220-1200. I'd like to stress that what I'll be discussing on our show doesn't constitute medical advice because I'm not specifically evaluating and treating any particular person or condition while on the show. My patients who come to see me at the Riobe Institute are fully and properly evaluated before I formulate a treatment plan to share with them. So I also advise you to seek the care of a board-certified integrative medical doctor to see which one of the ideas I'll be sharing throughout our show may benefit you. I'm blessed and I'm honored to be with you here today on Dream Vision 7 Radio. We're live every first and third Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. with our pre-recorded shows on the second and fourth Tuesday mornings also at 11 a.m. And if you're a night owl, you can listen to our pre-recorded shows Tuesday nights at 11 right here on Dream Vision 7 Radio. Again, I encourage you to give us a call because today we're going to be discussing cholesterol. We'll be getting the deep skinny on this very misunderstood fat molecule. So I'm looking forward to giving you some practical common sense advice to keep you and your loved ones healthy and ready for the challenges of being human in the 21st century here on planet Earth. Today we're going to debunk some myths. We're going to learn about cutting-edge research that happens to corroborate a lot of ancient medical systems. We'll be exploring the mind-body-spirit approaches that keep you and your family vibrant, healthy, and happy. I'm the medical director at the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine here in Jupiter, Florida. I've been a practicing physician for over 17 years, and I have the privilege of being double board certified in the newly accepted field of integrative medicine as well as an OBGYN. I grew very rapidly frustrated with our conventional medical model soon after completing my residency in OBGYN in 2001. I realized that I wasn't at all equipped despite 13 years of advanced training in medicine. What I realized was that conventional medicine was only equipped to deal with acute life-threatening conditions and had very limited ability to prevent or treat chronic conditions, like high cholesterol, for example, like weight gain, which constitute the vast majority of today's health concerns. I realized the medicine I studied for 13 years was only beneficial to prevent death from diseases, but it didn't prevent the disease itself. So I embarked on an exciting adventure to find answers. I firmly believe that nature always has a solution for anything it can allow to happen. Today we're discussing cholesterol, a very, very misunderstood fat molecule. In fact, fat in general is often maligned as just always bad, and today we're going to show that that's not really the case, and in fact that fat is a very critical component of body function. So I learned that I wouldn't be able to change the conventional model, but rather look at other systems that were better equipped for what my patients needed. My patients come to me for symptoms like high cholesterol all the time, and they're a little bit disturbed that their doctors are prescribing statin drugs. There's a lot of media hype around statin drugs and high cholesterol because there's so much controversy. So we're going to talk about why this controversy exists and how we can kind of unpack this topic and look at it logically to come up with sound treatment advice. Americans are increasingly realizing that drugs are toxic, and these statins are being prescribed like water by doctors without good reason. Our savvy patients are wanting to find out if they should be exposing themselves to these toxic drugs or if there might be some better options out there. So we're starting this conversation about cholesterol and looking at why cholesterol is vilified as bad and in need of reduction to protect you from having a heart attack. I'll also share 5 tips I use to safely and naturally lower cholesterol to acceptable levels so you can reduce your risk of a heart attack if you're at risk at all. Heart disease does remain the number 1 cause of death in the United States, despite the use of statin drugs, despite all our technology. We continue to have really one of the highest mortality rates in the world for a developed country. We have the lowest life expectancy in the world for a developed country, and for the past 2 years in a row, we have seen this come to fruition. Our life expectancy has actually been declining. So we're missing the boat somehow, and today I hope to help our listeners to really understand and be able to have better conversations with their doctors and also to look for other alternatives. The field of integrative medicine was formally accepted in 2014 as a medical specialty because there's an overwhelming body of evidence that it works. Integrative medicine is a more holistic system of medicine. It looks at the individual, mind, body, and spirit. It looks at things from a very panned-out perspective, and what I mean by that is very holistic. We kind of get this overarching idea of the patient, him or herself, not just the disease that we're treating or the lab that we found to be abnormal, in this case the high cholesterol. We have to look at things from a much higher perspective and look at the individual. Look at the individual in his or her environment to see what is leading to this high cholesterol and to treat it naturally if possible. So how did cholesterol get labeled as this harbinger of death from heart disease? A grim reaper of sorts. The Framingham study of 1977 was the first to link lower levels of so-called bad cholesterol, or LDL, to a reduced risk of death from heart disease. This sparked the assumption that if bad cholesterol was high, it must do the opposite and cause heart disease. So this sparked the race for a brand drug that would lower heart disease risk. A follow-up to the Framingham study showed that the data only applied to those under age 50, those who are already at lower risk for heart disease. It didn't show the same outcome for those over 50, who are more at risk. This didn't make any sense, but that didn't stop anyone from developing statins. While statins have been shown to reduce the risk of death from heart disease in those at high risk of death from a heart attack, and I stress the words high risk here because high cholesterol by itself does not constitute high risk, and that's an important distinction that we'll talk about more in a bit. Statins do lower the risk of death in high-risk patients. However, other cholesterol-lowering drugs do not. So if lowering cholesterol is the end game, we should see reductions in death from heart disease with the use of Niaspan, which is a cholesterol-lowering drug that mimics niacin, which is vitamin B3. But we don't see a reduced risk of death from heart attacks using Niaspan. And torcetrapib, which is a drug you've never heard of and never will because it was yanked off the market before it was ever made into the market. It was halted in phase 3 trials before the studies were ever completed due to the increased all-cause mortality in study patients. This drug was so toxic they couldn't even finish the studies. This was a drug that would lower so-called bad cholesterol. But again, it was so toxic, they didn't even allow the studies to be completed and never allowed it to come to market. So if lowering cholesterol is the end game, we shouldn't see these results that we're seeing with these other cholesterol-lowering drugs. So this clearly shows us that lowering cholesterol is not really what lowers the risk of heart attacks. Further, studies have clearly concluded that 50% of those who have heart attacks actually have normal cholesterol. So what's up with that? Studies on statin drugs or cholesterol-lowering drugs are all over the map. Some say it reduces death from heart disease, and just as many say it doesn't. Then there are studies who say there's no difference at all. Why? Because high cholesterol is not the same as high risk. High cholesterol has not been shown to cause death from heart disease, period. So when statin drugs are shown to reduce risk of death in high-risk populations, they're talking about people who are walking heart attacks waiting to happen. There's another explanation that many conventional medical doctors have not yet embraced, despite over a decade of research to corroborate it. Turns out that the way we check for lipids or cholesterol is profoundly outdated. Many conventional doctors continue to check total cholesterol, LDL, which is the so-called bad cholesterol, HDL, which is the so-called good cholesterol, and triglycerides. When we know that this is now not very effective, it's pretty much useless. Interventional medical doctors have known for over a decade that this outdated way of measuring cardiac risk is not helpful to our patients. Newer research shows that what we used to call bad cholesterol, or LDL, has been further divided into 4 different types of LDL based on their size. So it turns out there's type 1 LDL, type 2 LDL, type 3 LDL, and type 4 LDL. Type 3 and 4 LDL are very small, and that makes them sticky. When they're sticky, that means they can stick to the blood vessels and start to form blockages or plaques. Type 1 and 2 are large and buoyant. What that means is they're not sticky at all. They actually kind of bounce off of each other. And so they don't stick to your arteries, and they don't form plaques. So this explains why some studies will say that LDL causes heart attacks, and others will say that it doesn't. Because it depends on what type of LDL you're talking about. And those studies of the past did not look at these different types. So it stands to reason that the studies that show that so-called bad cholesterol increases the risk of heart disease, probably what was really being measured is type 3 and 4. And for those studies that say LDL does not contribute to the risk of heart disease, those patients probably had a predominance of type 1 and 2, which are the safer LDLs. There are also other factors, such as apoprotein B and homocysteine and insulin and lipoprotein A and more, that are also very useful to determine your real risk of a heart attack. Again, conventional doctors don't typically do these tests. Some cardiologists have begun to embrace what's called a VAP, or an advanced lipid panel, but mostly we'll find that these types of tests are performed by integrative medical physicians. So there's an advanced lipid panel that will tell you a lot about your true cardiac risk that a simple blood test that measures just your total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, and triglycerides simply won't tell you. When we talk about high risk, we're talking about risk factors such as high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, male gender, a family history of early heart attack, cigarette smoking. There are other risk factors as well, but these pretty much constitute the major ones. Females over 55